Welcome to Let's Plant Something. I'm your host, Allan Gilbreth, and I'm sitting here with my fellow, we'll call them Earth adventurers for today. Brandon Olmsted, Alissa Diggs, Scott J. Carroll, and producer Max over here sitting in with us. And, you know, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on Brandon.
Look, I don't know how to plant anything other than people.
Well, but your next door neighbor.
Oh.
But your next door neighbor.
Yes.
Let's just start with his backyard is full of what?
Pigs.
Cactus.
Pigs. No. That's the side yard.
That's the side yard.
The back and front are full of figs. But on the side yard, he has prickly pears, cactus fruit. It's just a wonderful, wonderful time. All the time.
And let's just say in the Mid-South, here in Memphis, prickly pear is an invasive species.
As it should be.
It's a highly invasive species. And it will defend itself with great honor.
We've had to replace a fence for it.
Yeah, prickly pear is man, that's a rough cactus. It is rough, it's tough. It's supposed to be from the desert Southwest, but you know, it'll look at a Memphis winter and giggle.
No. That is true.
So it's a cactus, but it survives the winter and it destroys fences.
Well,
the prickly pear cactus is your stereotypical big cactus petal. You know, like you see in every John Wayne movie ever filmed.
The big flat looking piece.
The big flatbread looking giant green thing with all those, spines sticking out every direction.
Because the saguaro is the one that looks like a guy with his arms up.
Exactly.
Robbed by the prickly pear.
So, yeah, but your neighbor has got an amazing amount.
Oh, yeah, and what's great is that he loves the trade. He is, ever since we moved in, he has been one of those the type of neighbor who takes care of you. It's like he adopts you, he's going to take care of you. He gives us water, he gives us figs, he gives us the prickly pear, the fruit off the cactus. He will, whenever he goes home, whenever he leaves and he goes back to the Middle East, he always brings me back things, like candies.
Oh.
And stuff from that he's brought back from there, and it's like at the end of Ramadan, they do a spread of samosas. And they always make sure that Amy gets a huge, and I say Amy gets a huge thing of them because once they are handed over, I don't see them again.
No, you're gonna lose on that one. So.
Oh yeah, but
so prickly pear.
If you're gonna get adopted.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. If you're gonna get adopted, that's the right way. Mm-hmm. Just prickly pear. Just beware if you're gonna plant this stuff. It needs space. And if it doesn't get space, it will take space. And there's very little you can do about it because it will convince you to move.
So it's the Roman Empire of plants.
It's slow, but it is steady. And it is, it's a high security plant.
Oh, yeah.
If you got windows you don't want anybody climbing over to try to get into, let me tell you. They're not climbing over prickly pear.
Yeah.
However, the flip side of, and it's going to tie into our other show, the Cooking Today show, prickly pear cactus make
an amazing amount of jelly and syrup.
Oh, and it's so
welcome
good.
to prickly pear fruit. And this is just one of those things the average person, if you're not from an area where these things are really common, if you pick one of the big pears on it, and they're like the size of a small pear. And when they get the proper kind of greenish red color, they're ready to pick. And you do have to wear leather gloves to pick them. And you do need to take a towel and rub all the little tiny spines off of them. And then if you try to eat it just right there, the flavor is amazing, but it is chock full of seeds.
Oh.
Like more than a pomegranate.
Oh, yeah. It is absolutely packed with seeds. But the flavor is, I believe we decided it was what? Somewhere between a watermelon and a pear.
Yeah, it was this weird, delicate, light, fruity, sweet balance. It wasn't overly sweet. There was just a little hint of tartness in there. It was just a great light all-purpose jelly and syrup.
And the thing is when you come at it from the outside, from the outer shell, and you look at it, you're not thinking that what's going to be inside is going to be as light and airy as it actually is until you open it up, and then you're like, okay.
Oh, this smells good.
This is amazing.
Yeah. So it's if you've got them, it's a plant worth becoming friends with. Reaching a détente, if you wish. You will have to aggressively keep them contained. You do got to cut them back, and you will be wearing leather gloves, and you're not going to use the cheap trash bags.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. They can get pretty invasive. They'll push out onto sidewalks, and I've seen some get really large in certain front yards. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is such a tasty fruit.
Yeah.
It's a good looking plant.
Yeah.
Big thing. It's a good security plant. Just be aware of what you're getting into if you've got one.
So then who would win between prickly pear and kudzu?
Oh,
That is
kudzu.
interesting.
Kudzu without
Yes, that's kudzu.
kudzu without a plan, but at that point there's still a prickly pear skeleton under the
I was gonna
kudzu.
say, it's gonna choke it out and then just.
So basically it's a kudzu landmine.
It's one of those situations where when, like the blob goes across, and rather than destroy what it is, it encompasses the power of whatever it's the same thing. Can
I
you
like
imagine? It'll become the most aggressive kudzu you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like when kudzu goes over the wild rose. So you just don't know it's there, but it's in there. All those spines are still hidden under the kudzu. And for those of you listening to us out of Memphis or outside of the South, kudzu is a lovely plant from the wilds of Asia, mostly Japan.
Allan is lying. There's nothing lovely about kudzu.
It is, I say lovely with that subtle hint of sarcasm, because it is a grape-looking vine that grows like up to 18 inches a day. But when we come back, we'll talk about something a little less invasive. And welcome to Let's Plant Something. I'm your host, Allan Gilbreth, and I'm sitting here with my fellow gardeners, cultivationist.
You'll come up with a good title for it.
I will.
Eventually.
As we've said in the cooking school, the T-shirt starts out with, selection number 1 is esteemed colleague. Selection number 2 is guinea pig. Selection number 3 is lab rat. And selection 4 is D, all of the above. Because, the biggest thing with all your close friends is, let's face it, they're there for you to experiment on.
Yes.
Yeah, especially when you're cooking. You kind of like, ooh, you got to try this. Or you get the, yeah, you got to try this.
There's a real quick tangent. I call that the Beverly Principle.
The Beverly
Principle. And here's why. If you go to the World of Coke in Atlanta, Disney, wherever there is one, you can try Cokes from all over the world. And there's one from Italy called Beverly. And it is the worst tasting soda that possibly exists in there.
I've tasted tastier dirt, actually.
And every single person goes, oh, I'm going to try this. Oh, this is awful. Hey, you got to try this one. To the point where I was talking with one of the people that worked there, and like, which one of these do you have to refill the most? And he didn't even miss a beat. He's like, Beverly, everybody's making everybody else try it. So that is the Beverly Principle.
If it's terrible, that's what your friends are for.
Yep.
It's fun.
Well, I'm going to keep picking on Brandon's neighbor's backyard, or I'm going to pick on the backyard and the front yard.
Right.
Because I happen to know there is a massive fig tree
hanging
hanging over your fence.
Yes, there is, and it's great because sometimes I'll get home and I'll be very tired because I'm a third shifter, and he'll catch me and he'll go, come here, and he speaks in broken English, but we communicate more by pointing as he points at figs that I am tall enough to reach up and grab, and as long as I've got long sleeves, I have no problem going out there and helping him till it, because that fig tree will stick to my skin, and then I'm miserable for days. But it's so much fun to like just search throughout that tree for ripe figs. And I'll usually come away with like 2 styrofoam containers full of them. And it's just, he's so excited. And that gets me energized. And then I can't go to sleep because, it's like I'm itchy, and I had a lot of fun picking figs for some reason. I don't know why I enjoy harvesting fruit, but I'm thinking it's Allan's fault.
Because then I usually get a phone call.
Yeah.
Hey,
or
come get them.
Or if I don't have wherewithal to speak, I will just send him a picture of the massive amount of figs I have, and he'll go, "I'll come get them."
I'll see you at 4. Get some sleep.
There is something about picking something off of a tree yourself, because part of you is invested in that, especially if you planted it and you grew it and you've helped cultivate it. Part of it is, I did this. I helped this to happen. Mm-hmm. Every time I take a pepper or something out of my bucket garden, it's one of those like, I did this. And so figs, we've all had fig Newtons. Has anybody ever actually had figgy pudding? Okay, so
Alan, raising your hand on an audio podcast doesn't work, man.
What even is, like, what does figgy pudding even taste like?
Well, let's start with it's fig.
Uh-huh.
And, unfortunately for figgy pudding, it is British cooking.
Well,
so
it can't be that good then.
So what is it? All right, well, one, it's medieval, and it can be either sweet or savory, depending upon how you want to put it together. And the biggest thing was does anybody remember sugar plums?
Okay, Allan.
Sugar plums, like the song.
Yes, the one that Tchaikovsky wrote 100 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
You were the only one there.
I know, but sugar plums. Sugar plums were mostly made out of dried fruits.
Right.
Dates, plums, raisins, whatever. They kind of mashed it together, rolled it through some sugar, and it became a sugar plum.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That is basically the idea behind a figgy pudding.
Figgy pudding,
So that's the basic idea. And just to kind of help preserve it, to add to its mystique, it was usually soaked in, something like rum.
or
brandy,
bourbon,
or cognac, or something like that. So welcome to the figgy pudding.
As a figgy pudding, one of my other jobs is I'm a trivia guy and a fact guy. And I was looking up stuff for the holiday season, and I was looking at what was the most historically accurate Christmas song. And what you said was absolutely right. In the Middle Ages, a lot of the different beliefs were kind of mixing, and towards the end of the year, they'd have a big Saturnalia-style celebration. And during that time, the poor would go to the rich people's houses and demand food, treats, other things under threat of mischief. Something would happen if we didn't get it. If you look at the lyrics of "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," they demand figgy pudding 18 separate times. And then they say, "We're not leaving" 6 times. So there is actual historical precedent for that song of saying, "Hey, rich guy, give me food, or I'm just going to keep saying give me food until you give me food."
Well, and let's just be honest. We love the holidays, all the holidays. I mean, I'll throw a party for Flag Day, but when it comes down to it, there is nothing more torturous about the holidays, nothing more terroristic about the holidays than when the carolers show up at your house, because they're doing this service. They're bringing the cheer and everything else. You can't help but basically ransom all things to them, and a lot of times it's alcohol.
Well, that's one way to stay warm on a cold. And this is Let's Plant Something. I'm your host, Allan Gilbert, and I'm sitting here with dirt conspirators today. We're going to have a different one every time we come back. I can already tell.
I love being a dirt conspirator.
A dirt conspirator. So welcome to Brandon Olmsted, Alissa Diggs, Scott J. Carroll, and producer Max sitting over there. And, I've been over in the earlier cooking show, we talked a lot about sweet potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to briefly bring them up here because if you've never grown anything in your life, if you think you have a brown thumb, welcome to a plant that will convince you otherwise. Because a sweet potato will grow in a bag in the back of a cabinet with no assistance from you at all.
When is a good time to plant sweet potatoes? Does it matter?
How big do you want them to get? That is your real question.
Regular size? Reasonable?
Well, all right. Scott and I, as a little side project, have worked with a property that used to have a fire pit. And this was back when they were clearing land.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this big kind of scorched area. And I just got all ambitious one day and went out there with some landscape timbers and squared it up and raked it out and put little dividers around it and said, congratulations, it's now a garden.
And we think it would work as well as a garden because there's a lot of carbonized stuff in there. And not to mention there was also stuff in there that we maybe shouldn't have burned.
Yeah, it was questionable. It was questionable, but but now it's all been carbonized, and it's been turned into the soil. The soil's rich and dark and all these beautiful things. So this year I ran out there and I put 6 slips from a sweet potato, aka the little vines that start growing out the top of them. Put in 6 of them in this thing, and they turned into basically tropical kudzu. These things were
the vines on those.
20 feet long, easily 20 feet long.
And we had to pull them, and we just started walking.
Oh, yeah.
And we were still pulling them.
And so to give you an actual answer, about 90 days is what they need to make a commercial size sweet potato.
That's not even that long. In my head, everything takes forever to grow.
Actually, these guys grow so fast, you can pretty much almost watch them grow.
Wow.
They will grow well in the garden. Mm-hmm. They will grow good in a bucket.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So if you're an apartment dweller, you're a renter, you got a nice balcony or something up there, a 5-gallon bucket with some nice rich soil, little holes in the bottom sides to get your drainage, and you too can have beautiful tropical looking vines that you can drape everywhere.
Yeah.
And so long as it's got water, light, and enough dirt, it grows. And it grows, and it grows. And the longer you let it grow, what you don't see is the mutants taking place underground. Because we put these in, when did I put those in? I put those in like
March?
Right around the very first week of April.
Yeah, it was when it was just starting to warm up.
And we didn't bother to dig these things up until like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And we grabbed the trowel, and you move the trowel, and you're just hitting, this must be a rock. And you move it, and no, it's a sweet potato the size of your face.
Nice.
Specifically your face, Allan.
Perfect. That's a good sized sweet potato.
Yeah, we actually have one. We'll post it, but we've got pictures of it. It was honestly like a deer stomach.
It was the size and shape of a stomach.
It was huge.
That's crazy.
It was absolutely huge.
Maybe I'll try to grow sweet potatoes.
Well, you are a sweet potato aficionado.
Yeah, I love them. They're my favorite.
This plant is so easy to grow. You can grow it in a glass of water with toothpicks.
Yeah.
If you remember back to the old 3rd grade experiment.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm like, wow, y'all so missed the boat. Because if you got those roots going, you should have stuck that baby in a bucket of dirt.
Right? Yeah.
And 90 days later, you'll have 9 more sweet potatoes.
See, I was like, I've propagated before. Well, my roommate propagated for me, but I didn't plant it in time, I don't think, and it died. And I was like, well, because it was a monstera leaf, and I was so excited. But it's harder than you think. I was like, I'll leave it in the water, and then you just put it in dirt, and it grows. Doesn't just grow.
Well,
so much has to be done.
We'll, 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 we'll give you a little assistance coming up. But really, the 90 days The 5-gallon bucket garden
I was like, but yeah,
produced,
that sweet potatoes, I think I could do.
let's see, 3 gallons of sweet potatoes a couple of
crazy.
weeks ago.
Yeah, we took a big picture, and now we divvied them up. And
No, you're talking about out at the garden,
Yeah.
where we got 4 gallons. We have 4 gallons, a almost completely
Yeah.
full 5-gallon bucket out of 6 sweet potato plants.
Crazy.
Just let them go, and they made lots and
Wow.
lots of wonderful tubers.
and we still have some. And the good news is, in the right environment, they'll last for a while
Yeah.
too.
Oh yeah, they'll keep. Well, the funny thing is about growing your own produce like a sweet potato, you discover how long the shelf life really is
Yeah.
versus what you bought at the store.
Yeah.
Because you discover this has been in a warehouse for
who
probably
knows?
2 months
Yeah.
before it finally got to you. Because the ones you just dug up have been sprouting and running off for months if you keep them in a cool, dark place. Now, the ones you get at the store,
Yeah.
a
They
few
can start
weeks
being
later,
stinky, yeah.
they're looking at you like, I'm ready to
Oozing
start,
goop.
growing and doing something.
Yeah.
Well, this time of year, pumpkins. At the start of the year, April, I planted pumpkin seeds in my backyard. And you actually had a really great idea of cutting a hole in a kiddie pool to keep the vines in the
We
in the yard.
did.
And I have a giant pumpkin that survived because they were fighting for it on the vine that I picked off the vine a couple of months ago, right when it was ripe, and it's still sitting on my table perfectly fine. Perfectly ripe, perfectly ready to go.
Wow. Yeah.
And will perfectly get cooked before that much longer, I promise you.
Yes.
So, we looked at this. So, yeah, Alissa, a sweet potato, pretty simple to do. So long as the vines have started pretty much tater in the ground, vines sticking up out of the dirt, and it's on.
And
Okay.
it's pretty.
It's on. But they really are beautiful, beautiful vines.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some other fall produce. And let's plant something. I'm your host, Allan Gilbert, and I'm sitting here with my fellow fertilizer aficionados. That one might
Well,
stick.
I mean, you do
That
know
one
how
might
to,
stick.
Lay it deep.
Brandon
it was
Olmstead, Alyssa Diggs, Scott J. Carroll, and producer Max sitting over there with us. And we've had a little fun with figs. We've talked about prickly pears. We're going to get Alissa growing sweet potatoes without
true.
too much problem. Scott, you had a lot of fun growing a pumpkin.
I did. I did. I
That's
had
a good story.
I had a tremendous amount of fun. When we first moved into our house, the first summer, I noticed there was this weird vine growing in the backyard. And I called you and I said, hey, what is this? And Allan, you looked at me and you went, that's a pumpkin. And I went, I didn't plant a pumpkin. The people who were in there before us had carved a pumpkin in the backyard and one of the seeds had taken. And this particular spot in my backyard is consistently wet and it was perfect. But that year, the vines went all the way across the yard and they were a mess. So this year we said, well, we can plant some pumpkin seeds, but we got a little clever. You had memory of planting watermelons with somebody.
Yes,
And-
down in the swampy lands of Houston, Texas. Yes.
So we got kiddie pools. We cut a little hole in the center and we started the pumpkin seeds in the little pods. And then we put those right in the center. So as the vines grew out, they would stay inside the kiddie pool for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
We planted 4 different ones and some of them had pumpkin, some of them started, they were competing, but we ended up getting one big pumpkin out of it. And it's a fairy tale pumpkin, but it's one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. And that thing is currently on my table, ready to be cut and seeded and everything. And the seeds that come out of that, there's multiple things you can do with those. You can save some for planting. I like to dry them sometimes, but then you can bake them.
Oh, yeah.
And when you bake them, you can do them with a little bit of salt or you can do them with some cinnamon sugar dust. And, oh, they're so good.
Oh, yeah.
They're so good.
That was my favorite part.
Roasted pumpkin seeds
Yeah.
are amazing.
As a kid, that was my favorite part of carving pumpkins because I am not very good at carving pumpkins. I am not the strongest person. I know that might be crazy. I look so buff. but not very good at it. But roasting pumpkin seeds, love a roasted pumpkin seed. It's the best part of fall.
They are very good. They're very good. So, well, now that we've turned the garden, now what can we do? It's winter. It's the Mid-South. What can you do? Oh, what can you do? You know what? Gardening does not stop.
No, not around here.
No, because now 2 of my beds are committed through next summer because I have planted a shocking amount of garlic.
Ooh.
Oh.
We're going vampire hunting.
I was gonna say.
Oh.
You know something we don't know?
Let's face it, we all of us know a certain person with whom garlic is an actual food group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all know somebody that, they ran out of garlic. They would rather run out of toilet paper before they ran out of garlic, So the cool thing about garlic is bigger is better.
Yeah.
So the bigger the clove, and again, garlic is just another one of these ridiculously easy plants to grow. You need good drainage, good rich soil, aka the basic recipe for almost every plant you put in the ground. However, you just break up that head of garlic. You bought at the store either as planter garlic or as edible garlic, and you break those cloves apart, put them in about 6 inches apart, about 3 inches down. Well, let's see. For the next about 9 months, you have edible greens.
Ooh, yeah.
They're
Garlic
so good.
greens are very tasty. A lot of people don't realize that. They just you can eat garlic greens. Well, it's an onion, guys, just like a Lisbon bunching onion that we eat the greens of, or the chives. So, absolutely.
Are they a little garlicky?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they are not. Everyone has their own flavor. Because in my particular yard, of course, I have a massive patch of garlic chives.
Oh.
So, from 20 years ago when I bought one cute little container, I think it was at the grocery store, of, garlic chives, whole organic with the little onions at the bottom, the little onions down there.
There's inorganic garlic?
Apparently. So, well, I figured they called them organic because they left the onion part on the bottom. AKA they just dug it up, washed
still
it,
dirt
and sold
on
it
it.
to you.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's still little roots down there.
Yeah.
So I trimmed off the green and I looked at that and I went, I got a spot in the yard.
Yeah.
Book. So now I have about an 8x8 patch of garlic chives.
So if you're in your kitchen and you go to pick up your garlic and you've got one of them that's got that little green sprout starting up, you can take that, put that in a little tiny pot in your kitchen windowsill or right outside, and you will have those greens all year.
Wow.
And
I bet they'd be so good on
eventually it turns into a whole nother garlic, right?
Yes. Yeah. After about 9 months, it will actually form a whole new garlic head
baby.
like we see grocery store. So they do, and the larger the clove that starts, the larger the garlic. So garlic is basically a 2-year plant. So garlic actually flowers and makes a little, it's hard to call it a seed. It's just kind of like a little tiny garlic bud.
Interesting.
And you grow that, it turns into basically like a wild onion. We call them wild onions. Comes up a little single bulb. The next year, the second year of its growth, it puts on all the extra cloves.
Wow.
So when you choose the biggest clove of the bunch and put him in there, you're a year ahead.
Oh.
We did something very similar where I grew up in New Jersey. The soil was very rich and scallions grew wild everywhere. So I would dig up scallions, little teeny tiny looking onion thing with long green, and I would replant them and keep them in water by the kitchen. And all the time we was using those in cooking.
Isn't that just onion grass? That's what we have.
Well,
onion
we
grass
call it
here.
onion grass down here, and that's actually a type of wild garlic.
Oh, okay, cool. I used to eat that as a kid.
It's good.
I
It's
loved
tasty.
onion grass. I thought it was
It's
so cool.
tasty.
I was like, "There's food in the ground."
Well, that's very
I loved it. I'd make my little witch potions, with just water and
that
grass.
may be how we have to close the show. We're going to have to keep a tape of that and go, you know what? There's food in the ground.
Yeah.